Hello everyone, my name is Cab, and you are watching Chapter 5 of my Fire Emblem 12 Lunatic mode Blind LTC. To see what I mean by Blind LTC, take a look at the description, but in short, this is my first time playing Lunatic, I don't have any long-term game plan, and I'm trying to achieve the lowest possible turn count that I can, one chapter at a time. Chapter 5 is the first of a handful of chapters that become much harder on Lunatic mode for reasons that aren't just stat inflation. First of all, the placement of some enemy units actually change. Most notably, Rickard now starts one tile further up than he did on Maniac mode. This small adjustment puts him exactly 8 tiles away from the nearest player deployment spot, which makes it impossible to recruit him with Julian on turn 1. And since they're both thieves, Julian and Rickard will move at the same pace, so that means that we need to find some sort of way to slow Rickard down so that Julian can catch up to him. The second big change on Lunatic mode is that George and his snipers will actually attack you if you enter their range. And that sounds like a relatively minor annoyance, except Marth's 7 movement is just barely not enough to charge past the snipers without drawing aggro. Of course, we can't just skip the Hammer staff in an LTC, and Marth and the rest of our units would definitely get rolled if George got involved, so we need to find a way to safely reach the village that isn't just taking the long way around. Due to the sort of fork-in-the-road layout of the map, most of our units are going to be put into high movement classes, so that they can help Marth reach the village while still having enough time to double back and clear out enemies near the gate. Chris, Katria, and Sirius are going to need the Rainbow Potion in order to hit some combat thresholds. Chris will be facing a lot of combat as usual, and he's going to be spending a lot of time flying over mountains, so he won't really have any healer support. The extra defense will help him survive. Sirius needs like 1 extra point of speed so that he can double and 1-round the Physic Bishop on the very last turn, and Katria needs a boost to her strength to reach some KO thresholds. She's also taking the Taurus Shard, at least for now. My strategy for this chapter requires a 6-move rescue staff user. We only have 3 promoted units at this time that can fill this role, and one of them is Chris, who is by far our best combat unit. So really it's between Aran and Sirius. In the end, the burden falls onto Aran because he cannot 1-round the Physic Bishop like Sirius can. We've deployed Castor again for this chapter, though he's on a horse this time and he's traded his killer bow over for a simple Iron Lance. Not only does he need the Cavalier movement, but Castor actually has the perfect combination of stats for a very specific AI manipulation, which I'll be explaining when we get there. One last thing to mention about this map is that it features magic enemies for the first time since the prologue, and they are very scary. Even Chris gets cleanly to it KO'd by Bilganone, so it's actually pretty tricky to advance through them without somebody dying. Kind of like the pirates in the previous chapter, we'll need to trick them into attacking in a way that spreads out their damage across multiple attack targets. Keeping in mind that the lower movement classes act first, we can use L-switching to determine the movement order of the mages. Oh yeah, we get Barst here as well, though he doesn't seem nearly as good as he was in Shadow Dragon. Okay, we can finally play the chapter. This first turn already requires some AI manipulation. The Rainbow Potion squad are going to be tasked with enemy phasing the mages, with Chris being wide open to all of them. He would go down if 2 of the mages ganged up on him, so we take advantage of movement order and place Katria and Sirius just within range of the first 2. Sirius and Chris have the same res, but Chris is more void, so the first mage prefers to attack Sirius. Katria has been kept as a cavalier so that her res tanks to a flat 0. That will make the second mage go for her and get 1 rounded back. The final mage can only reach Chris, who can also kill on the counter. You may have noticed that I stumbled right into a pitfall by forgetting to equip Ceres with a javelin, which caused him to not counter that mage that he baited over. Of course, this was on purpose. This map has a bishop that has a droppable physics staff, and we need to be very careful about leaving enemies at low health. If any enemy is alive with less than half health, then that bishop will heal them and waste a precious physic use. Sirius cannot one-round that mage without a crit, so we're forced to just not counter at all. This second turn is where Castor is really going to show his worth. We need to clear a path for Marth towards the village, and that means taking out the thieves and cavaliers in the way. Sheeta can comfortably one-shot them with her wing spear, but we actually need to keep that far cavalier alive for a reason that will become clear next turn. So, Pala takes out the first cavalier with her silver lance. Barst and Marth clean up the remaining mage. I don't think that my Marth has gotten any strength yet. Now that the way is clear, Sheeta can one-shot the second cavalier while also blocking Ricker's right exit. Castor then swoops in and takes away all of her weapons so that she is unequipped. This might seem like we're trying to bait Rickard into attacking her, but he will actually always go for Sirius, who is about to block off the top exit. Sirius also has to unequip, otherwise Rickard would just suicide into him. Because she's unequipped, Sheeta loses weapon triangle advantage over the remaining silver sword cav, while Castor can maintain his by holding a lance. Even though Sheeta is slightly tankier, Castor has just enough defense to achieve a lower expected damage than her when she is unequipped. This baits the cavalier to A, attack Sheeta from that particular spot, and B, not lose any HP from the counter so that the bishop won't be tempted to waste a physic use on him. I'm not too sure why Rickard preferred Sirius over Sheeta here. It's possible that trapped thieves with the Thief AI will always choose to attack the unit that is along the shortest path towards their destination. You might have also noticed that Rickard actually broke enemy movement order there. Normally the AI will always perform all possible attacks before moving to other units. I'm guessing that since Rickard doesn't actually have attacking as part of his main AI, that he was skipped during that phase. And then when the AI went to move him, it realized that he had no choice but to try to clear a way out. I don't know though, thieves are really weird in general. After highlighting the sniper's attack range, it'll become clear why this cavalier had to stay alive until now. Now that we've shuffled some units around to make room for Julian, we can finally recruit Rickard. And with that, everything has been perfectly set up for Aran to rescue boost Marth forward using the Mountain, Rickard, and the enemy Cavalier. This rescue boost lets Marth just barely walk out of the sniper's range. In Fire Emblem 12, the top tile is the lowest priority rescue tile, which means that every other tile has to be covered for Marth to appear there. Rickard and the Mountain easily cover the bottom and left tiles, but we can't cover the right tile with a player unit since that would aggro the snipers. That means that the only option left is to enlist this last Cavalier to help us and then promptly kill him off. Thank you for your service, buddy. Now that the exciting part is over, all that's left to do is to get the village with Marth and then rescue him towards the gate. We actually have plenty of time to do this, since it takes Marth quite a while to make his way over there. There really isn't much to talk about until we get closer to the boss, so I'm going to speed this next part up. The enemy formation near the boss is actually sort of tricky to crack. The knights are all linked to the one holding the javelin in the back, so even though we've entered the range of the rightmost one, they won't actually move. Entering the javelin knight's range also means entering the boss's range, so that means that we have to deal with most of these enemies on player phase. The fact that the boss and the generic ballistician can combine to kill any of our units is why our advance has sort of come to a crawl, though really the only unit that actually matters here is Aran, since he's the one that has to get near the gate to rescue Marth. And we're fine as long as he gets there around the same time as Marth gets to the village. After getting our units in position last turn, we can start to deal with this last group of enemies. Sheeta and Bars combine to take out the first knight without taking any damage in return. Then, we send our tankiest units in Ogma and Katria to plug the bridge and protect our other units. Marth grabs Lena's Hermern Staff, which is probably going to be used entirely on the rescue staff, since Warp isn't available on Lunatic mode. Chris has waited patiently for one turn, so now he's beginning his assault by one-rounding the boss. After defeating Toras, Chris loots his dead body to retrieve the Gemini Shard, which is a very welcome addition to our inventory. With the Taurus Shard and the Gemini Shard, along with the Rainbow Potion, we can now buff up a unit's strength by 4, which, I don't know, will probably come in handy at some point. That leaves one generic ballistician and 2 knights, who could kill Katria if all 3 were to attack her. But luckily, Ogma is a juicier target than Katria, and the ballistician actually prefers to go for Aran, who is very squishy as a bishop. One helpful property of ballisticians in this game is that they cannot move, and not only does that limit their attack range, but it also bumps them up to the very top of the attack priority list. This makes them almost trivially easy to deal with by simply placing a squishier unit in their range who cannot be attacked by anybody else. Aran rescues Marth within reach of the gate, so all that's left to do is farm some experience. Okay there, Sheeta. I didn't record most of the prologue, but as you can tell from her stats, she's been kind of growing like a Mozu. This is actually my 8th attempt at recording these last 3 turns, despite the relatively solid reliability, and I was getting pretty frustrated at Chris missing the boss, or Ogma creating the ballistician and causing the bishop to physic, or Sirius missing javelins on the bishop, but Naga clearly has a plan for us all. Speaking of Sirius missing javelins, my hands are shaking at this point, but I hold my breath and... Clutch God Sirius may have missed the last 3 attempts in a row, but he hits the ones that count. I was actually just going to flex the fact that I routed the secret shop in without buying the Master Seal, but Sheeta definitely deserves it now. I'm still in pure shock at this point, so once I figure out where Marth is, that's Chapter 5 completed in 7 turns. I'll see you next time.